Jim, we're ready when you are. You're muted.
Great, thanks, Christine. Morning, everyone. Jim Bannock, new signature. I'm a principal architect, and today we are going to talk about Lync migration tips and specifically around the migration to Lync 2013 from Lync Server 2010. So, first thing we're going to touch on today is some of what's different in Lync 2013 from the previous versions of Lync and Microsoft OCS. So one of the first big changes is the topology and the scalability that allows for more front ends per pool. So previously you could have up to 8 front ends per pool, and now you can have 12 or more. What this scalability allows is better conferencing with the AV conferencing server. You no longer need to have dedicated ones. They're built into every front end server. And finally, you don't need the monitoring archiving server anymore. It's no longer a dedicated server role, and it's built into every front end server. So previously in Lync 2010, we needed a separate server. Now it's built into every server in the product. Exchange. Exchange can now be used as the archiving backend if you're using Exchange 2013. Previously, you needed a separate server for archiving. Exchange can now be used. If you don't have Exchange 2013 or you're using Office 365, you can still use SQL Server as your alternative monitoring server. Office Web App Server. Office Web App Server is used to display PowerPoints in full fidelity when we're in Lync meetings, so that no matter if you're in the web client, a full Lync client, or you're on a mobile device, you're going to be able to see that content in the PowerPoint. It is a required role if you do want to present. So although it's not a Lync role, it is something that is needed as part of the deployment. From a disaster recovery perspective, and this was a big change between Lync 2010 and Lync 2013, is that pools can now be paired together for disaster recovery. So not only do you have resiliency in multiple front-end servers per pool, you now also have resiliency in if a whole data center or a pool fails, you're able to activate the users on the other data center, and they're able to continue working with all the features that they had on their primary pool.
And Jim, if I don't know what a pool is.
A pool is your Lync front end, is multiple Lync front end servers together. So in a normal Lync environment, you have what are called you have 3 front end servers that handle all the day-to-day functions of Lync. All of those make up a single pool.
Got it.
XMPP. So XMPP is used if you want to integrate Lync to Google Talk or to other third-party XMPPs such as Jabber or OpenFire. So previously in old versions of XMPP, again, we needed a dedicated server for this. It's now built into the front-end server and the edge server that you're already deploying for your Lync environment to enable external access. SQL mirroring. So previously we needed a SQL cluster to provide high availability on the back end. Lync Server 2013 supports SQL mirroring as well, and the SQL witness can be used if you wanted high availability without any interaction. So if a SQL server failed, I automatically will reconnect to the other SQL server. And that setup is built into the Lync 2013 setup. So you don't need to be a SQL expert in setting up a SQL mirror in order to take advantage of it. If you still want to use a SQL cluster, or your database team requires you to, you can still do so. It just needs to be configured manually during the Lync setup via the PowerShell commands. It's not part of the GUI for setting up Lync. OAuth functionality. OAuth is a new feature that's been released in many of the Microsoft products that instead of using usernames and passwords to synchronize data between services, it uses server-to-server certificate-based authentication. This is how features such as the Exchange archiving and integration into SharePoint happen from the Lync environment. When you set up your Lync environment, the first server that you have generates this OAuth certificate that is automatically distributed to the rest of your environment. Finally, Microsoft's Also, to take advantage of the cloud, has a solution called Lync Hybrid. Lync Hybrid lets you extend your on-premises Lync deployment and also activate users in the Office 365 service while providing a shared namespace so that you can see your buddy list whether your account's on premises or up in the cloud. This becomes very useful if you need to have large meetings or other events where you want to take advantage of the scalable cloud resources while still keeping your users on premise for the day-to-day manageability and features such as enterprise voice. Persistent chat. Persistent chat used to be known as group chat in previous versions of Lync and OCS. It always was a different server and required a different client. Now persistent chat is a key component of the Lync environment and it shows up within the Lync client. So you no longer have to run two different clients, two different sets of tools. It is what's considered a first-class citizen. The director role in OCS and Lync 2010 used to be a required component to make sure that all your SIP requests were routed to the right place. Because of those advancements in that brick level architecture that we had talked about before, the director role is no longer required and is only necessary really in scenarios and environments where you may have the need to have an additional layer of security. So when we're deploying Lync, there are two major deployment options. There's the on-premise deployment that we're going to talk about, and there's also the cloud deployment, then the hybrid deployment that is between the two of them. So in some of the changes for Lync 2010 or Lync 2013, one of the big things that we mentioned is the monitoring improvement. Previously, when you had to troubleshoot a Lync environment, you had to catch the error in action, and you had to have it catch it on the server that it was happening. With the centralized logging monitoring, you are now able to, after the fact, gather logs from all of the Lync servers in your environment to view them for diagnostics without having to capture it in real time or knowing exactly what server. This service runs on every server in your environment and can be used to gather the information. On top of that, you can use System Center Operations Manager along with agents deployed around your environment to perform what are called synthetic checks to make sure that the environment is performing properly. So you could put one at every user endpoint in your environment and say, okay, I know that Lync is working from this data center or from that data center, and get reports on that information when it's reported back to System Center. Manageability. So one of the big things we wanted to do in Lync is help make it easier to manage, easier to deploy. So Lync is now supported on Hyper-V on Windows Server 2012 and 2012 R2. We talked about the consolidated archiving and also through the much easier to manage HA and disaster recovery through things such as SQL mirroring and the database failover. From an operational perspective, we can take advantage of all the features that are available in PowerShell 3.0 and also custom role-based access controls. What this will allow you to is develop custom roles for your administrators and your technicians so when they're operating Lync, they're only working in the places that you're allowing them to work. System Center is monitoring and management of your environment, and those synthetic transactions allow you to get a picture of your environment as a whole instead of just as what's being reported from the servers. Also, again, the simplification, making the persistent chat servers and the XMPP servers not individual servers that adds to more server sprawl, but bringing them into the environment to make it a simpler deployment. This is a sample Lync server environment if you had deployed everything in there. Now, there are some things that are optional in all deployments depending on what you're doing. Your main pieces, though, your Lync server enterprise pool right in the middle. You still have your front-end servers and your back-end servers running SQL. Persistent chat is optional. However, it needs to be on its own set of servers if you're running an Enterprise Edition server. You have your Edge server, and you have the reverse proxy. Previously, this was run by Forefront Threat Management Gateway. There's now multiple tools that can handle this, such as IIS AAR, or multiple or very different load balancing providers, such as F5 or Kemp, or even Microsoft's Web Application Proxy in Windows Server 2012. The file store, this is where all our content data is stored, just like it was in Lync 2010. The Office Web App Server, this is the new role. This is what allows us to see the PowerPoint. Finally, the SQL reporting database, depending on your deployment, you may integrate with this in your back end, or if you have a very large deployment, you may make this as a separate database. Now we want to talk about what's the best way when we're migrating from Lync 2010. What is the process we want to follow so that we give the best experience to our end users? When we're talking migration, there's four main terms that I always like to reference. The first one is a migration. This is actually moving my production deployment from a legacy server to Lync 2013. There's upgrades. This is installing new versions of software on the server or a computer. In a coexistence, this is where we may have Lync 2013 running, but we also have other environment running on a prior version, either OCS 2007 R2 or Lync 2010. Finally, interoperability. This is making sure that as we're deploying Lync 2013, that we're able to do it successfully and everything works and talks together during that coexistence. And that was one of the key tenets of the migration process, is you want to make sure no matter where your user is in the environment, that you're able to operate successfully and they're able to get all of their work done. So deploying Lync 2013, it's very similar as to the deployment of Lync 2010. You want to do it side by side with your existing infrastructure. It is not supported to do an in-place upgrade, just installing the new server bits on the same server. So the migration process is side by side, site by site. So in a large deployment, you would first upgrade the entire site of front-end servers, back-end servers, edge servers, and then repeat for every additional site in your environment. This makes sure that people in your European site are not affected by changes in your American site and vice versa. It also gives you the ability, if at any point during your testing there's a problem, you can roll back and you still have the resiliency without any major logistical issues. During our build, we always want to build the environment, we want to pilot it to make sure it works as expected, and then we can move to production. The way Lync allows the build side by side, this allows us to do that without impacting the users during the pilot environment. Lync supports migrations from Lync Server 2010 or OCS 2007 R2 if they're on the latest updates. So for Lync Server 2010, this is CU6. If you are running group chat, you can upgrade for Lync 2010 or OCS 2007 R2 to the persistent chat. What you cannot upgrade directly from is OCS 2007 non-R2. You would have to upgrade to 2010 or OCS 2007 R2 first. From a client side, the Office Communicator client, the Lync 2010 client, and the Lync 2013 client will all work against Lync Server 2013. And the same thing for the OCS 2007 group chat and Lync 2010 group chat clients. Lync 2013 client will work in Lync 2010 or 2013. So if you're planning a desktop upgrade now or an Office upgrade, your 2013 clients can continue to work with your Lync 2010 server. The Lync 2013 client, however, cannot talk to any of those legacy group chat servers. So if you are using group chat in OCS or Lync 2010, you will need to keep that client around, the group chat client, until you migrate the chat rooms to Lync 2013. If you're using enterprise voice or dial-in conferencing, you have coexistence support with mediation servers from Lync 2010 or OCS 2007 R2. So again, Microsoft has designed this so it's not a rip and replace, it is not a large outage scenario. You're able to gracefully migrate between previous versions. From a voice coexistence, if you are using Lync Server 2013 and your home server is 15, which is Lync Server 2013, and your mediation server is 2015, your calls will work. Same goes in coexistence with Lync 2013 and 2010, or with OCS 2007 R2 and Lync 2013. The only scenario that Microsoft doesn't support is a Lync 2010 pool with a Lync 2013 survivable branch appliance. A Lync 2010 survivable branch appliance will work fine with a Lync 2013 pool. Again, this just shows that I can migrate gracefully as I'm able to upgrade my hardware and software without impacting my end user's experience. When we're migrating from Lync 2010 to Lync 2013, the first step is to download our topology into the Lync 2013 topology builder. We build out our first pool and we're publishing that topology back to the Lync environment. Once you do that, you are no longer able to use the Lync 2010 topology builder. This is important during your upgrade process. If you do, you will destroy your Lync environment. So you always want to make sure in your change control process that after you introduce that first Lync 2013 server, you're using the 2013 topology builder. You can continue to use the old management console, you can continue to use the old PowerShell, but you need to change your topology builder. All your data will still exist in the central management store in your Lync 2010 server. Once you are done migrating, then you will migrate your CMS. Lync 2013 is able to talk to the CMS in Lync 2010. When we're moving our users, moving them is the same as moving them between pools in your Lync 2010 environment. You can either do it from the Lync control panel, select your users, and choose to move them to the new Lync pool, or from your PowerShell windows from Lync Management Shell, you can either use Move CS Legacy User, which moves someone from OCS 2000 R2, or the command Move CS User to move them from 2010 to 2013, or back from 2013 to 2010, say if you run your pilot and you run into any issues. So again, just because I've moved someone to a new version, they're not stuck there. I always have the ability to move them back. So what does this migration process look like step by step? Normally, you want to take what we can feel is a 9-stage approach to really make sure that every step of the way you've done your planning, you have your information, and you're doing it in the least destructive and least intrusive way possible to your end users. So in stage 1, a planning stage, you want to make sure you have your migration strategy. You want to make sure you've defined your sites, your location, who's going to use in different groups. Maybe your Lync 2010 environment took off a lot, and as you go to Lync 2013, you want to make sure that you have the extra servers in the regions to deploy voice services to Europe or video services to your Asia Pacific users. You want to make sure that you have a large environment and you define your footprint now in the first stage. Once we have that, now we're able to prepare, we want to prepare the legacy environment to support Lync 2013. So first thing we want to do is make sure that from a client perspective and a server perspective, you're on the most recent versions. You need to be on Lync 2010 CU6 or higher to connect to a Lync 2013 environment, and you want to be on at least the Service Pack 2 release of Lync 2010 to be able to connect to the Lync 2013 environment. After you've got your updates deployed, take a backup of your environment. Back up your front-end server, back up your certificates, back up your central management store. Just in case something goes wrong, you always want to be better safe than sorry. Then run Lync Best Practices Analyzer. If there's anything off in the environment, the Best Practices Analyzer is going to pick it up, and it's going to let you know what you need to do to remediate before you start introducing new equipment. Once we are happy with the environment, the next step is to upgrade the Active Directory schema. This is done as part of the Lync server setup, and the Lync wizards will walk you through it, or you can do it manually if you have a different team that's handling the Active Directory services. Once your schema is up to date, you will do forest and domain preparations in each of your forests and each of your Active Directory domains to make sure that the proper security groups and permissions are deployed for the Lync environment. Once we've prepared everything, we have our legacy pool set, now we're ready to introduce that first 2013 pool to the environment. Like we mentioned before, you want to go from an inside-out perspective. So the first piece we're going to deploy is the Lync Server 2013 front-end pool. What this pool will allow us to do is test the environment without introducing additional networking complexity or new certificates to your Edge server yet. This lets us put the information and start testing it. We don't have to deploy our entire front-end pool at this point. We only have to do enough to validate that the pool is working as expected. Next, now that everything is set up, we want to configure things. So we're going to set up our Edge server and our legacy director to be able to route traffic to that front end pool. So that front end pool is going to be written as its next hop, either being the edge server or the director, depending on your deployment. The edge server can also handle traffic for external clients, both connecting to the 2010 and 2013 pool. So as you're moving your users over, you don't have to deploy a new edge environment immediately. Now this brings us to the pilot phase. So we're happy with the environment. We know the connectivity is working to that backend pool. Now we're able to move a few users in a trial pilot mode to make sure that everything is working from a day-to-day operation. This is where we're testing things like automatic client sign-in, where we're testing PowerPoints, where we're testing IM and audio and video functionality. You want to make sure everything works in your pilot group before you start expanding it to everyone else. And because of that coexistence we talked about before, they're still going to be able to work and interact with people that are on the legacy environment. Once we're happy with our front end pool, now we want to start testing the rest of the networking components. So we're introducing a 2013 edge, and optionally, depending on your network topology and your security requirements, a director server into the 2013 environment. They're working in parallel at this point, so the 2013 users will be connecting to the 2013 servers, and the 2010 users will be connecting to the 2010 servers. Now that we've built out the environment, we want to validate everything. You want to test all your connectivity scenarios. You want to test legacy clients connecting to your legacy environment, talking to new users, and vice versa. You want to test to make sure federation works with external parties that you're talking to. During this time, your federation access will still go through your legacy environment. Validate all those remote access scenarios. Make sure mobility works. Make sure full clients work. Make sure that users can sign in with their apps from their mobile devices. Make sure they can sign in with non-domain joined machines if you're going to allow that. Make sure everything works at this point. You're kind of pilot phase 2 at this scenario. Now that we're happy with the environment, our pilot tests have gone well, we're able to scale it out to production. If you need to add more front-end servers to your pool at this point, this is where you put that in place. If you're adding additional edge servers to your edge server deployment, this is where you're adding them in to make sure you have all the high availability. If you're building additional pools in your 2013 deployment, this is where you're putting them in place. This is where you're putting your pool pairing in place. You're getting everything put together on what is needed to go into full production at this point. Now we're moving everybody into production. So we're moving the users over to the 2013 pool using either the GUI or those PowerShell command lists we talked about before. And that move process is a very quick process for most users. They're signed out briefly, they're signed back in. They're not locked out of their account for hours, they're not down for long periods of time. Because we've done all the pre-validation testing ahead of time, you're able to move them over and you know things are going to work the way they're supposed to. At this point, you're also updating your DNS records, so legacy clients will connect to your new edge server first. Your federation endpoint will connect to your new edge server first, so that everything is moved off those legacy pools and onto your new pools. If you're using OCS at this point, you'll want to use the move CS legacy users instead of the move CS user command. Now, again, we iterate through other sites. So we've finished one site, now we go to the next site and the next site, and you keep repeating the process. So those same 9 steps we do through all the environments to make sure that we're moving site pool by pool and site by site. Finally, once we're done with the migration, now we're moving the other features. We're moving our dial-in access numbers if you're using them. You're moving your response groups. We're moving over the address book. If you have any separate mediation server in your environment, you're moving those over as well. Exchange contact objects, conference number and directories, everything that's not a direct user, you're moving those over at this point to get those last bits off the legacy environment. Following that, we can now decommission the old environment. We make the last couple changes to your DNS records. You move your central management store off the old environment onto the new one, and we can safely decommission the legacy servers. The Lync uninstall process will not let you uninstall servers if it detects that there's still users on them, if there's still objects on them, or if the central management store is on there. So you will have safe checks during the process to make sure that you're not losing your services. From a software requirement perspective for Lync Server 2013, you can run it on Windows Server 2012, 2012 R2, Windows Server 2008 R2 SP1 or above for any of the Lync server roles, and your SQL Server can run from Windows Server 2008 up to Windows Server 2012. You do need some tools such as PowerShell version 3, Microsoft.NET Framework 4.5, and the Windows Identity Foundation. If you're deploying Lync on Windows Server 2008 R2, you will need to deploy these ahead of time. If you're deploying it on Windows Server 2012 or 2012 R2, these are built into the install, so you don't need to worry about them separately. SQL Server, you need SQL Server 2008 R2 SP1 or higher. SQL 2012 is supported. SQL 2014 is not supported for Lync Server 2013. Your front-end servers automatically install SQL 2012 Express on each front end. This is not something you need to worry about. This is not something that your SQL administrators need to take over day to day. The Lync jobs will handle it themselves. From an administration standpoint, either Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 2008, R2, or 2012 can have the administration tools installed. You do need PowerShell version 3, so if you're using Windows 7 or Windows 8, you will need to make sure that PowerShell is installed. Like we mentioned before, to upgrade from Lync 2010, you need at least cumulative update 6. In reality, you want to make sure you use the most recent update that is available on Microsoft's environment so that you have all the new features available in both 2010 and 2013, and any bugs that were worked out of those environments are taken care of. If you are deploying the front-end servers, you need to install the Windows Desktop Experience. This is normally something that is done for remote desktop servers, but it also is what provides all the AV features on the back end for your Lync front-end servers, such as conferencing, response groups, and call parking. You will need hardware load balancers if you are deploying a scaled environment for Lync. Lync web traffic is still over IIS. It is still load balanced through hardware load balancers just like it was in Lync 2010. There are a multitude number of load balancers that are certified for Microsoft Lync. They're always listed, and that list is up to date on Microsoft's TechNet site. From a virtualization perspective, all workloads that Microsoft Lync runs are supported to be virtualized. Instant messaging, conferencing, enterprise voice, monitoring, persistent chat, and your edge servers. From a support perspective, anything that Microsoft supports on its virtualization support matrix, so both Hyper-V and ESX, are supported. At a minimum, if you're using Hyper-V, you need 2008 R2 Service Pack 1. Ideally, you want to be using Windows Server 2012 or higher to take advantage of the additional cores and networking resources that are available to you in the new versions of Hyper-V. All hosts, if you are deploying Lync at a large scale, you want to make sure that the network adapters are dedicated to Lync. In a fully laden pool of 10,000 plus users, that workload and conferencing traffic can reach up to 500 plus megabytes a second. You want to make sure that you have the network capacity dedicated for that. You also want to make sure you're using advanced networking features such as the single root I/O, SRVIO virtualization in Hyper-V 2012 if available, again, to help reduce latency on the servers from that virtualization overhead. If you have to use multiple networks on the same server, make sure you're segmenting them with VLANs or other virtual network optimizations to segment the Lync traffic from the rest of your traffic on your network. If you're connecting to your backend database, either via iSCSI or Fiber Channel, make sure you're using multipath I/O, again, to make sure you have the resiliency to your backend databases so that a network failure does not impact your Lync operations. Some things that don't work with virtualization. Microsoft does not support mixing virtual front-end pools with a physical backend, so a physical SQL server, or edge servers virtualized, and front-end servers physical. Everything within a single pool needs to either be all physical or all virtual. If you're going virtual, you want to make sure that all of your servers have equal performance. You don't want to oversubscribe certain VMs on certain servers and say these are backups, that's okay. You want to make sure the Lync environment is equal in performance across the stack. Because of the way Lync works, it's very agnostic on choosing which server. It's not looking at the performance of the underlying hardware. And then you want to spread your members of your pool across different physical servers in the VM environment so that the loss of one physical server in your VM cloud will not affect your Lync environment because it's going to take out more than one Lync server. Some unsupported features in Lync servers are you doing quick and live migrations while the server is up. If you need to do maintenance on your Lync server or move it to another host, you want to take advantage of the redundancy and availability in the Lync environment and shut down that host and move it to where it needs to go instead of migrating the server while it is up and running. Dynamic memory, very similar to the networking and the CPU resources, you don't want to use it on the Lync environment because you want to make sure that the SQL and the AV resources that need to be by Lync are available as soon as they need it. Also, doing VM replicas, so either using VM replication or some sort of full VM backup and restoring, is not supported in a Lync environment. If you want to back up your environment, you want to do so at the application and the SQL level and not the VM level. So in summary, this was a great way to show there's a multiple different ways to attack a Lync migration, but if you do your planning first and you take a methodical approach, you're going to be able to migrate successfully with minimal user downtime in a successful environment. So at New Signature, we can offer all these features for you, be it the architectural design like we talked about before, or maybe you're looking to expand Lync into multiple environments. Do I have enough bandwidth to support my WAN so that I'm not saturating it with voice calls? How do I migrate successfully from a Lync environment, a legacy IAM environment, or maybe a legacy PBX environment to take advantage of Lync's features? We also do the deployment of these. Our team of engineers is really skilled in deploying IAM conferencing, enterprise voice, and all the features that are together. Or if you just want to get certified and learn more about becoming a master of managing your Lync environment, we offer the Microsoft certification and training courses to help you learn to manage your Lync environment better. With that, I want to open it up for questions. If anyone has any questions on what we talked about today or other pieces of the Lync environment, more than happy to answer them now.
Jim, I was keeping an eye on the chat window, and yes, it looks like people have found the chat. I am going to stop recording now.